I have this formula for writing viral. So you need those like 4 elements. Make the benefit huge, make the perceived effort really low, make sure it's relevant to your audience, and then make sure you have good reach/distribution.
I found out about you through my friend Sana. I'm like, who's this guy? Now, first of all, your profile picture on Twitter, you look a lot older. You look like you're in your 40s. And then I follow you on Instagram. I'm like, this guy is not 40. He's like barely out of college, it looks like. So for the record, how old are you?
I'm 24. That's funny because that picture is when I was 19, and I get flack for it all the time. But yeah, I'm 24. I just don't take my.
You get flack for it because of why? Because
they say I'm catfishing, you know? Like I look like one thing, but I mean, in reality, I got this long Jesus hair and I look completely different, but I'm just too lazy to take pictures.
I get it. You have a couple different looks, that's for sure. That was like your like studio headshot for like casting call, in case you're ready to go in for the role of like the young executive or something like that.
Yeah,
that was perfect for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did a little research about you, but mostly I know about you from your thoughts and your writing, and you say things and you have a very strong perspective and I think a pretty clearly defined personal brand. Since the podcast is really geared towards helping people develop their brand or do marketing, I think you're the perfect guest for this, especially because you're so of the moment and using these platforms. I also have to just quickly give credit where it's due. It is very difficult in my experience to grow on any social platform, especially on Twitter. Twitter is made for writers. You do writing. So it's like, it's no surprise then that you have a really good sized following in a relatively short amount of time. So let's start by going into the past before we go into the present and into the future. Tell me a little bit about who you are. Like if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little story about you.
My name is Dakota. I catfish online. And like growing up, I'll just like briefly go into it. I used to be a chubby, fat kid, super socially anxious. Grew up with a father. He chose to smoke crack instead of raising me. That caused all kinds of like insecurities and stuff growing up. Common theme throughout my life was like just doing uncomfortable things and like a lot of different personalities I had to put on to kind of adapt to different environments. Long story short, at the age of 18, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So I was like, okay, I'm going to just be an electrician because there's a program where you can just kind of graduate early. I'm going to learn a trade, make some money while I figure the things out, and then I'll go from there. Actually started reading self-improvement stuff like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I just fell in love with it and just always had this in the back of my head, like, I really want to do something where I have control over my own life. I'm very big on freedom. Yeah, so I was working as an electrician. I was working 12, 14-hour days up in oil rigs in Canada, and I was just absolutely miserable. I was making great money, seeing all these people, they just look absolutely dead inside, like they've been doing this for 40, 50 years. I don't want to be that person. During that time, I was like, okay, I need to figure something out. Listen to podcasts, all that. Jordan Harbinger, he mentioned how he went to Vietnam. I was like, I want to go travel. Like, screw it. I got to find myself. And so I went there, absolutely fell in love with just traveling and the freedom of that. And I knew like, I need to make like this part of my life or like having that freedom. After that trip, 3 months in Asia, I came back, started working again, but like way more intent of like saving money and like trying to figure out ways to have my money work for me. Found crypto in 2018, started investing heavily. Everyone thought I was freaking crazy. Actually turned out to be one of the best decisions in my life because that gave me the freedom around 2-3 years later to drop out of college, quit my job, and kind of like pursue writing full on. And after 2 years of like investing in crypto and all that, I was like, screw this, I'm going to be a teacher. Was going to college to be a high school English and psychology teacher. But yeah, I ended up dropping out because I was learning more from Twitter than I was in class. It was actually crazy. Like I was paying thousands of dollars, but the people on Twitter were teaching me more than anything else. To begin with, like I was on Twitter because I was keeping up with crypto, and I stumbled across a course on like, oh, grow your account and all of that stuff. And I took it and I just kind of stumbled across that section of Twitter from crypto. And yeah, I just took it and ran with it, made a lot of mistakes along the way. I studied you like religiously when I was first starting out on the entrepreneurship game, like branding. I was doing web design, all of that stuff, and I absolutely loved your content. So it's kind of crazy how it kind of went full circle for me. It's really surreal, but yeah, lots of mistakes along the way and lots of learnings.
Pretty wild ride from profession to travel to college to Twitter, self-educated, and now creating a business for yourself. There seems to be like one pretty consistent theme: your willingness to say yes to just about anything and figuring it out later. Is that a pretty accurate description there?
Yeah, I did a lot of uncomfortable things growing up. So I was forced into dance class. I was forced in all these other sports like jujitsu, all of that stuff. And it was just like putting me in these positions where it's like, oh, I'm very uncomfortable. And at first I didn't want to do them, but I was forced into it. And I think that set my baseline for things. It's like, oh, like discomfort isn't that bad when you lean into it. You kind of adapt, get used to it and all of that. I do have a tendency to say yes to a lot of things. Just, I mean, for the story, see where it goes, to learn all of that jazz.
You mentioned something about your dad. If you don't mind, I'd just like to
Mm-hmm.
come back to that because it helps me to understand the person before we get into all the tactics. You said that your dad wasn't really around, an absentee dad. He had an addiction problem. Is he still around? Is he in your life today? What is that like?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting relationship. So my mom gave my father an ultimatum when he had me and my brother. You either keep partying, just doing drugs and all of that, or you take care of your sons. He didn't have a father growing up, and he was very scared of like, oh, I don't know, like if I can raise these kids. So he chose the alternate route. And I mean, he would come to visit sometimes, like growing up. He would get sober, come visit, all of that, but then he would relapse, and then it was like a constant cycle. But to this day, it's like I'm the father. And it's like I got to take care of him at certain points. Like I literally just bought a car off him because he's in so much debt. I actually lost my shit for the first time ever on him, just tell him to get his life straight. I see him more as a friend, but he's in my life sometimes, like for a few months, and then he'll like leave. And I've never seen him as a father, as more of like a friend, but I don't hold any resentment towards him. I'm actually very appreciative that it happened this way because I wasn't abused. I wasn't sexually assaulted or anything like that. I just didn't really have a father in my life. I mean, sure, there's definitely disadvantages to that, but at the same time, I got to forge my own path. I wasn't like emotionally abused or anything like that. So I'm very appreciative of that.
When did you find yourself? When did you discover your own inner confidence and strength? What age, and did anything happen?
Man, this was one of the biggest things I've had to overcome. I used to be fat, for context, like a little fat, not severely obese, but like a chubby chunker, some people called me. And I got made fun of for that. And when you're young, especially, when you hear these narratives spun at you many times, other people telling you, oh, you're fat, or like, what, you're whatever. You hear it enough times, and since you're so young, I mean, that's pretty much your only input. And you play enough times and you start to believe it. You're like, oh, like this is what I'm hearing, this must be true. And then you start to identify with how other people may see you or mean things they say. And then over time, it's just your default narrative. You adopt that identity. I was super socially anxious and all of that. So I just started telling myself all the time, it's like, I am socially anxious, I'm fat, I'm not good enough. So I mean, I ran that for years, 12 years or whatever. Like that caused me to start going to the gym, like wake up at 5:30 a.m. because I was just sick of not liking myself and actually like hating myself in a lot of ways, not feeling good enough. So that drove me to the gym at age 13. I lost the weight. I actually got like fairly muscular. And I mean, high school, age 16, I was known as the Jack Kid. And everyone thought I was charismatic, like all this stuff. I didn't feel it inside because I was playing that narrative for all those years. So, I mean, you can change your exterior, but I mean, I didn't do any inner work. So I still had that narrative, like I'm not good enough. Like I'm kind of like worthless. I am socially anxious, all of that. And I felt like I was going to get found out at any moment. So I carried that narrative from age 13 to age 22. And no matter what people told me, like, oh, you're so great at this, or you got this going on, I was like, I didn't believe it because I was so ingrained in that thinking where you're not good enough, you're this, you're that. It wasn't until I read the book, I think it's 6 Pillars or 7 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathan something. I read a part in there where it was something along the lines like, don't identify with your thoughts. Like your thoughts are not reality. Your feelings are not reality. It was the way he phrased it or something. That's when it kind of clicked for me. It's like, oh, like I'm running all these narratives. I have all these beliefs, but I never thought to actually challenge them. And it wasn't until I started challenging those beliefs that I was socially anxious, that I wasn't good enough, that I was this or I was that. It wasn't until I started challenging that narrative that I made those changes. So it was like, okay, I'm socially anxious. And then I'll be like, wait. I recognize it. It's like, socially anxious? No. I am not socially anxious. Maybe I'm experiencing feelings of social anxiety, but that does not mean I am this fixed way. So it wasn't until I started challenging those thoughts and recognizing them that's when a lot of the inner work started. I reframed these narratives. So first you got to recognize it and then challenge them, reframe, and then then it takes the rewiring your thinking. And that's super powerful. That was age 22, age 21, I found that book, and that's been a powerful tool for me. But it definitely wasn't an easy road, and it took some time and some struggle.
For our audience who might not know who you are, the few pieces of content that I've consumed from you, you pretty much say it as it is, and you're not too worried about filtering your thoughts. So it might seem like he's really vulnerable, but he's this way all the time, everybody. So I'm going to keep asking questions. I want to spend a minute here talking about this because I find what you're saying to be the exception versus the norm. I have lots of friends in my community, people I coach and try to help. It seems like they know what the problem is. They even know what the solution is, but for some reason, they just can't put it together. And they spend a lot of time sitting in the problem more so than taking action towards the solution. Here you are, having grown up, maybe you were teased and you didn't like the way you looked and you transformed that. So you're the kind of guy who's like wakes up one morning, it seems like, who decides today's a new day and I'm going to just change my life because I don't like the way it was. You go to the gym, you lose weight, you do your thing. And then at, what did you say, like 22, you decide, you know what, my outside and my inside don't match up. You seek the book, you read the book, and you start to change the narrative almost instantly. What is it about you, or how do you see the world in that you seek the information presents itself, and you take immediate action? Because if we can unpack that, I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Honestly, I don't think I am. I don't think I take instant action. I've actually probably glossed over it too much, too fast, sorry. But
Okay.
yeah, like I struggled with being chubby for a long time before I took action. It wasn't until like I just felt so much pain. I just didn't take action. Because my mom was dating someone at the time, her boyfriend, and I think he might have suggested like, let's go to the gym and all that or something. So I started going with him. He was a big influence on me. Yeah, it definitely wasn't instant where it's like, oh, I recognize the problem. It is definitely like a gradual. I felt that pain. And then also with the social anxiety stuff, I wasn't active. Like I actively like didn't know how to change myself. It wasn't like, oh, I got to read this book or whatever. It was like, I just knew I felt this pain. I was reading these books on like body language and persuasion and or whatever, and I just so happened to come across that book because of a recommendation from a YouTube video from a channel, Charisma on Command. And I just
the
did,
one.
yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try reading this book. And I mean, I've tried all these different solutions in the past, but yeah, it was a lot of trial and error. And then I think some things just clicked because I just tried so much stuff. Well, not even tried. Like, I mean, I read a lot of stuff, and yeah, it was definitely not an instant switch. It was baby steps. I mean, to overcome my social anxiety too, even before that book, I was too scared to really ask women out or whatever. So I would just make small talk to people at like a cashier desk, and I'd just ask like, oh, hey, how's your day going? And then that was a small win for me. And then I would like continue to do that and force myself to do that. And then once that was my new baseline, I've approached people, just random strangers. I remember an old man at the mall one day. I literally just walked up to him like, how's your day going? And I just had a nice conversation. So you're just kind of pushing your boundaries each time. And I mean, it's definitely not a flick of the switch. At least it wasn't for me. It was just kind of like, okay, let's inch forward a little bit. Lean into that discomfort. There's definitely a lot of discomfort you're gonna have to lean into. I think that's a good sign if you're feeling discomfort, because I mean that's growth. I mean, you don't really grow without kind of putting stress on your body. I relate it to the gym. You need to like break yourself down a little bit to grow, like come back, recoup, and grow.
I'm doing the math here. It says you went to college. On your LinkedIn profile, it says you got your bachelor's degree, but it doesn't seem like you got your master's degree. How far into college did you make it?
Yeah, I'm such a boomer with LinkedIn. I don't even know how to operate that, so it's definitely false. I got 2 years in, so I was on my second year, my first semester of second year of college, and the moment I knew I was going to drop out was when I was forced into a certain class, and I was in this class, and the professor had these slides up. First slide I saw was it was introducing everyone to whatever, like blah blah blah. All right, class, we're going to go around and we're going to introduce ourselves as a weather system, and I want you to mime the weather system that you're feeling today. And at that moment, I was, no, I'm not into this. I mean, I was getting an arts degree, but still, like, I think that's not for me, at least. I don't think that's, yeah, that was kind of weird. I think there's a place for college and university, but I think for many people, especially creatives, I don't think it's needed, especially with the resources that are out today. Like, I learned more from your channel, The Futur, than any other like college class I learned, and it was way more applicable, not fluff, and it was actually people that are in places where I wanted to be. I think that's one of the biggest things is like a lot of these professors or teachers, they haven't really done much outside academia, but there's definitely a place for it. Just it wasn't for me.
Well, it doesn't seem like that decision hurt you any because you started your own company. I believe it's called Growth Ghost. And I looked at the website. So there's a couple of remarkable things that you claim on the site. One is that you guarantee a minimum of 20,000 organic Twitter followers in 60 days, or you'll do it for free and then get you another 10,000 followers at no extra charge. And then when you click on the see if you qualify, it says you're not taking on any new clients. So you have a busy roster of clients, presumably. That's why you can't take on any more. Tell me what it is that, if you were taking clients, what is it that you do for your clients?
Yeah, so I always like to say I pretend to be people on the internet. What I do for clients is there's two parts. There's basically writing and distribution. So I create content for different types of people that I want to take on that I think are interesting. And then I distribute that content on those social networks with my networks of people that I know. So they'll retweet their stuff, their content. But yeah, basically I get to know the client.
Can we talk about a little bit about business? Like if you were taking on clients, how much would you charge to be able to do that for 60 days?
I've had different offers. So I had it where one was 10,000 followers in 90 days. I charged $25,000 for that. That was crazy to me because at the time I just didn't want to take people on. So this guy DMs me, hey, I want your service. I was like, oh, I mean, I'll refer you to someone else. Like I'm super high ticket. It was just because I was like, I just don't want to take anyone on right now. It's got a lot of work. He asked me, he's like, what's high ticket? And this is all in the DMs, by the way. This guy never had a conversation. It's like, oh, $25,000 to get you to 10,000 followers. Just like, okay, screw off. I'll refer you to someone else. And he says, okay, put me on the wait list. It's like, holy shit. Really? Like, this is crazy. I mean, I realized the power of a personal brand and building an audience, but it was like, that's when it really clicked. Like, this guy doesn't even know me. And I mean, he probably knows of me. The only reason I'm able to do that in the DMs is because, I mean, I've built a brand, I've built the trust, the authority, all of that. And he's willing to pay me that amount of money. Ended up working with him, got him to 10,000 followers in 2 days. He's at 65,000 followers in like 30 days. It was stupid. So yeah, I've charged 25,000 for that. I've also, again, like I had some people reach out because they knew me from Twitter, hopped on a call with them and they wanted my services. Like, no, you just need to do this, this and that. Like just follow this strategy, do what I said. And they're like, okay. But if we wanted to hire you, how much would it be? I was like, $35,000. They're like, okay. And then after the call, we want to work with you. Let's do it. Let's like send the invoice. Like, are you serious? Like, this is crazy. But typically I do month to month, and right now I'm charging $7,000 a month. And that's just to like grow their account. No crazy guarantees.
The person that you did the thing for $25,000, that you got them the results in 2 days, you're like, are you done for the rest? Are you kind of got your goal, or how does that work then?
So I'm such a people pleaser, and I think that comes from just trying to be liked as a kid and all of that. But I'm also a big proponent of like over delivering. So like when I reached that mark, I mean, I could have cut it and then stop.
I think you're supposed to cut it, by the way. You're like, I guarantee you followers, and you delivered. You over delivered. You delivered in like, what is it? 58 days faster than you're supposed to.
Yeah, it was he was so mind blown.
Right.
It was so cool to see. I really like him. I continue to work with him. But yeah, I was like, let's see how far we can take this. I mean, it's a good case study too, right? You can leverage that down the line to land more clients, or if you have a different offer, you can just say, hey, I've done this in the past. So that's a huge asset for me to say I've grown someone's brand to 60,000 followers plus in 30 days. Like, it's absolutely nuts. And that's going to be a huge asset for me when I create other offers down the road. But yeah, like I just went absolutely balls to the wall with his content, and I wrote a thread every day. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was cool to see, because it like pushes your boundaries. You're like, oh, this is what's possible. I can do this. And then yeah, for future offers, like, oh, okay, let's see how far I can push this. I can probably charge more down the line for some result like this. So yeah, it was crazy.
While we're on this line, it says you're not taking any more clients. How many clients are you actively managing right now?
Yeah, right now, so I've been bottlenecked by my systems. That's something I've been really working on lately, so I can take on more clients. Right now, I think I have 7, and we'll probably be upping it to 9 real quick because we're onboarding new people. But yeah, it's it's been crazy. I want to get that to around 20 by like within 6 months. But yeah, it's definitely intense. I'm trying to get out of the agency work. I've hired some people to kind of like take my place. I've trained them and all that. But yeah.
I see. So is this a case that the ghostwriter has a ghostwriter?
I mean, kind of in a way. I mean, I've created all these frameworks, and I've trained my main guy, Joey Justice, on how to run everything and do this and do that. But yeah, I guess I kind of do have a ghostwriter, but I also come in and I'm just like double checking, like making sure like the final product, okay, maybe we need to change the hooks here and all of that.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of fun. It's like an MLM.
Well, you're going to serve as the function of the editor or the creative director at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You have a system, a framework, you vet and test people, you do quality control, you're growing a business, and it's not just a business of one person anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Now you said something, and I need to come back to it, and then I have more questions about content and how you grow on social. But you said that you do two things. You ghostwrite for people, and then you deal with distribution. And you said that you send it to a network of people that you know that then also share it. Tell me a little bit about how that works and why that works.
Big secret a lot of people don't know about. You can pay for retweets, you can pay for IG story shoutouts and all of that. You can go the organic route and you can comment 100 times a day if you want. But like the biggest secret is you just pay people to retweet the content. Like everyone you see on Twitter, typically like the big creators, they're either trading retweets, they're buying retweets, they're selling retweets, all of that. So like that's what I mean by distribution is I'm paying people to retweet my client's content because to get that kind of results, like I'm not commenting 20,000 times a day. That's absolutely crazy. But yeah, like that's it. The way I see it, it's like paid ads pretty much, but you're just getting shout outs.
They're amplifying the message by sharing it with their networks, right?
Exactly. I mean, and the thing is, like, it's not a ticket to, oh, you're just going to get all these followers. It's like, no, you need the content to be nailed on, because otherwise, if you have bad content and you get 100 retweets, it's like putting whipped cream on dog shit. It's not going to be appealing. Like people, you need to nail those two aspects. And then like vice versa. I mean, you can have the best content in the world, but if no one sees it, it doesn't matter. So you need those two elements.
What does it cost for this kind of distribution? I've never used anything like this before. So if I wanted to grow my following and somebody who's listening, it's like, okay, I get it. If I believe my content is good and I need help with distribution and more retweets, how do I go about doing this? What does it cost?
If you want to get retweets from a more like broad platitude, general motivation account, it's cheaper because you're more of a commodity, don't have as much authority. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of like a broad audience, you know? You're looking at between $10 to $35 typically for one of those accounts that has 100 to 200, 300,000 followers, typically like 25. And then when it comes to more authoritative brands, like people that have an audience of a certain niche, like maybe a business niche, it's going to be more expensive because they have a higher quality audience, they have more authority, stuff like that. In that aspect, you're looking probably between, it can range like $40 to $70 per retweet. And that's for probably 100 to 200,000 followers. When you get to the stratosphere of 500,000 followers, you can charge like crazy prices on Twitter. Instagram's crazy too. Instagram's even pricier. I'm not too acquainted with Instagram buying. I've never bought a share on Instagram, but for myself. Yeah, I think they're pricier.
So a 500,000 follower audience that's niched, what would that cost to retweet?
I would probably say you're probably like $200 a retweet or something. Wow. I'm just ballparking though. I know a creator, I think he's got 500,000 followers and he's decently well known. I think he's charging like $6,000 for 20 retweets or 30 retweets. Like it's just nuts.
This is probably the easiest money ever to make once you develop your audience, right?
Yes.
Because literally you just don't, or do they have to say something?
No, they don't have to. They just hit a button. It blows my mind still to this day.
Right.
It's like, I just hit a button. I just made $40, $50, $60. It's like, what?
Maybe I'm working too hard these days. I need to rethink my strategy here. And for people who are like, the creator economy, now followers don't equal dollars. You just heard a way that you just make money right then and there. Okay. All right. So let's get back in time though, because you're on Twitter, you're learning, you're watching YouTube, you're doing what you're supposed to do. You read books and you're sharing your information. at what point in which you're able to trade on your following for a client who's like, I want you to do what you do for me?
Yeah, so I started my ghostwriting agency in November of 2021. And within 28 days of launching, I was at 11K a month. I only had, I think, 5,000 followers at the time. Just absolutely, because I think that was the inception.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, it was nuts.
Holy cow.
That was around the start of like before ghostwriting was really well known. I mean, it's still not really well known. Right away, I was charging 3K a month out the gate. I didn't even promote my landing page, not to this day, like not even once. It was just a link in bio. Here's my website. Here's my copy on my landing page. Yeah, I had someone fill out a form, landed them for 3K a month, and then again 5K a month, and then again I think another guy at 3K a month. It was absolutely nuts. It was kind of crazy. It shows the power of, you know, if you're in the right market, you can charge higher prices and like how you position yourself. Because if I was just a copywriter, there's no way I would be able to charge that because there's so many other copywriters. But since there's so few ghostwriters, it's just, yeah, it's a lot easier.
What do you attribute to your success in landing that first client to get them to go to the page and then do a call with you? Before we get into the call and how you handle the sales yourself, what was it? Because 5,000 followers is pretty hard to do on Twitter, but it's not enough to say like, you're the guy, let me give you money. What was it about you? Can you pinpoint anything that triggered someone to like, oh, I need to look into Dakota right now?
Yeah, it's actually funny. So I use the website AppSumo a lot. I like it's a marketplace for agency owners or marketers to get softwares and all that. But I bought this software and I was a big fan of it. I love it. I use it to this day. It was slowing down my computer a bit. So I messaged the founders on Twitter. I said, hey, love the app, all this, blah, blah, blah. I just wanted to let you guys know, like, this is what I'm experiencing. I don't know if it's my side or your side. And that was it. I wasn't trying to land them as a client or anything. They got back to me like, oh, okay, cool. But I guess they checked out my profile and they saw my landing page and they filled out my form. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Right on. Like within a week of launching my business. So yeah, that's kind of how I got my first client in the door. I definitely DM'd. Man, I was DMing these really big names on YouTube and stuff, and I was like, I'm going to shoot my shot, and like cold DMs and cold emails and all that, but nothing came to fruition out of that. But yeah, it was funny. I wasn't even trying to land a client or that client, and they filled out my form. It was pretty funny.
Wow, that's pretty wild. Okay, so you're on the call, presumably selling a creative service you've not been able to charge other people for. How does the sales call go down that you can land a client?
So I work at coffee shops a lot. I just love going to coffee shops, and it's kind of my happy place. But I took the sales call in the middle of a Starbucks with this microphone, and it's just loud as shit in the background. Super unprofessional. And I took the sales call. I had no idea what I was doing. I was so nervous. Like I get so nervous on sales, or used to on sales calls. And basically I just asked questions, like just try to get a good idea and all of that. I was just, I don't know what to say. Like I'm just going to ask questions and get a good idea. Yeah, basically pitched my service and just said, so I asked him all these questions to get a good idea of his situation. And then I was like, okay, like I feel like I understand everything. Do you want me to like run you through what I do? Probably said it really nervously. And because I shit my pants in my head. But yeah, ran him through my process, and the price is $3,000 per month. I shut up. And he's like, okay, so I'm going to talk to my business partner and get back to you. And like, I know that's not a good sign. I knew it in my head, but I was just too scared to kind of like push him for the sale. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool, man. But turns out he actually needed to talk to his business partner, and then they came back to me like 2 days later, like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, oh, sweet. So yeah, that was cool. But super nervous.
So it wasn't just a story. That was, he really needed to talk to his business partner. He wanted to move forward.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the first dozen sales calls were so nerve wracking for me. But I just leaned into that discomfort, and I knew like, oh, okay, this is like, I'm feeling these nerves, and it's a sign I need to do this. Like I need to lean into this, because in order to become the person I want to become, I need to develop these quality traits, and I know taking these actions are the way to get that. So I just leaned into it.
Writing for yourself is one thing. And for some people, that's the biggest challenge to have to overcome. But writing for someone else, when you said you have to pretend to be someone else and that's what you do for a living, tell me about your process. What do you do to get in someone's head, and what is it you're looking for to be able to mine so that you can start to become like them, but more interesting? Because obviously if they just do them, it's not going to go anywhere.
With each client, I hop on like a 1 hour call with them. And what I'm mainly looking for is okay, like what are the vibes of this person? Are they super serious? Are they playful? Are they funny? Maybe they have a certain pattern of speech where they're like gentlemen, or they say these things like, oh, hey guys, or like stuff like that. So I look for stuff like that. The biggest thing that has helped me is talking about their story. Because when they start talking about their story and things they've done, you get a better sense of their personality. Like me talking on this podcast, you probably got a better sense of my personality because of some of the stuff I've shared. So that's a huge thing, is talking about people's story. And that also gives me content to write. But I just get a really good sense of who this person is, what are their values, stuff like that. I don't have this crazy process. I was just like, okay, he's kind of more serious, so I'm going to write in this tone. And then what I found, at least, by writing their story, that kind of does the heavy lifting for you. I mean, because people, if you write in a certain tone and you write their story, I think people fill in the blanks about narrative or the way the person's saying it. And so I put less emphasis on, oh, I got to nail like this person's like pattern of speech like to the T, and more focus on their story, their tonality in a sense, their personality a little bit, and focus on that. But yeah, I think a lot of people overcomplicate it. And they're like, oh, I just need to nail it to the T, and I need to study them day in and day out. I haven't run into the issue where people think, oh, this isn't that person. It's mainly just, okay, write their story. What's their main vibe? Is it serious, funny, all playful, all that? Maybe do they got a certain pattern of speech where they say gentlemen or whatever, like they talk in a certain way. So
A lot of people say, I don't have a story. I don't have an interesting thing. And so when you say, I'm going to tell your story, what kind of patterns have you seen that make for compelling stories? I love to teach stories and talk about stories. So I'm really curious about what you do as a ghostwriter.
I think the most important part is all stories revolve around change. So all great stories from my perspective. Let's say how I started from socially anxious and ended up confident, or I started out broke and I ended up wealthy. You want to look at the where you're at now, and then that gives you a good idea where to start. So usually most great stories are about transformation. If you see like at any good movie, like, okay, where are they starting? Like, who is this person? Maybe they're a naive boy that doesn't value hard work. And then at the end of the story, okay, now they're this more mature person. They understand the value of hard work and they've evolved in all this way. It creates that arc. You start here, arc, okay, I learned this. It's the hero's journey kind of thing. So that's the biggest thing I always look for, is like, okay, what's the worst spot you were in? And then I get them to talk about it and then how they overcame that. It's overcoming that struggle that really resonates with people. So maybe people don't resonate with my story of like father smoking crack and not being there, but they resonate with the struggle of, oh, my father wasn't emotionally available for me, and it's that struggle. People relate with emotions and overcoming struggles. So if you can target that, sure, maybe not the exact context they won't relate to, but the feeling of it, they do.
When you find that story and you're able to tell it across, I assume some kind of thread on Twitter, what else are you writing about then? Like now I'm enrolled in your story. Does it have to be an exchange of values? Because when you write about, here's 40 things that I learned that you won't learn in college, or here's how you write better and get more engagement. Here's how you get a lot of people to look at your content, whatever it is. So you're exchanging value for their time and attention. In your framework so far, it's like we get the tone of voice, the patterns of speech, and their values and their story. What is the next pieces of content revolving around?
I look at it through the lens of like 3 pillars. So people either want to be validated. So you like validate their opinions, or you tell them it's okay to be like this, or confirmation bias. You can do stuff like that. They want to be educated, so that'd be more value. This is how you do X, Y, and Z. So validated, educated, or they want to be entertained. So that could be memes, shit posts, stuff like that. But like those are the 3 pillars I kind of think of it, just to simplify it. And like the way I think of it is, okay, so you got personal content, so that's your stories, that's your opinions, your worldview, stuff like that. That's the personal pillar. And then you have authority, which is more of the educate, the value stuff. This is how you do X, Y, Z. It can even be like how I did big achievement step by step. So it's kind of like a personal and an authority. So you can see how you mix the 2. And then there's the growth content. That's more the general broad stuff. The more general stuff that gets eyes on your account, but mixing those 3, the personal, authority, the growth content, and you just kind of rotate those. I feel like that's what gives you the best bang for your buck, because you're also developing your relationship with your audience through the personal. You're giving them the value, which is raising your authority, and then you have the growth content that mainly gets eyes on your account. So if you just think of it through that lens and just rotate, then I think you're good.
So the growth piece is kind of like the candy, because it's like everybody likes candy and you'll come in for that. And then the values, when in terms of education, that's how you build your authority, because ultimately you need followers who are interested in what it is that you can help them solve, right? And then your story and validating them, it's like you said, it's affirming them. Maybe it's a little bit of confirmation bias. Like, it's okay to fail, because sometimes we hit that point. It's like, we've all failed. Okay, I get it. I feel seen and heard, and you're rotating between these three pieces of content. Are you able to ghostwrite based on just 1 hour interview?
Yeah, so I try to do once a month with clients, but I can also do it without interview. So I just pretty much need, okay, what are the topics you want to write about? So if I have a fitness account and like, I want to talk about productivity, I want to talk about sleep, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, I have all these content pillars. Now I'll just do research and produce content on that. I have my frameworks, my writing frameworks I follow. So I just need the ideas in there, and then I just apply the frameworks, and Bob's your uncle. But yeah, there's some clients, I just never hop on a call with them. I just like, okay, I just know what this person wants stuff written about, and I'll write that. I mean, sure, I can't really write much personal stuff about them in that case if I can't interview them. I mean, that's definitely not needed. It's definitely a great thing to have if you want to build a strong personal brand, is sharing your story. But some people, they just don't care. They kind of see it more as a business rather than having a mission with their personal brand. That's totally fine. If you want to really impact people's lives and really move them emotionally, I think you do need to talk about your story. That creates a community, not a following.
So what you shared with me was pretty insightful, because for a long time, I'm just mostly focused on the education part. I just want to give value. I don't want to talk about myself. I want to tell my story. And then there was this barrier that I was building between who I am as a human being and the content that I create. So I incorporate the stories. And then I'm doing more content these days about affirming and validating, saying, you know, we all suck. We all have low points. We all fumble. We all fall. And to kind of just let people know that we're all human, and it's this human experience that we're living through. The thing I don't do enough of is this growth content. And now I know why my account is not growing. Dakota, you're a genius. You don't do growth content. That's why you're not growing. Yeah. I get it.
It's that simple. Right? Just go viral, right?
Yeah, just go viral. So that's, you know, it's like you, and you know, we're all guilty of this. We'll see something in our feed. It's kind of funny. It's not going to change our life, but it's just like, okay, I get it. And you see like it's got 4,000 likes or retweets or whatever. And like, okay, we need to have the candy from time to time if we want to grow, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like I think about the mission. Okay, what am I trying to do here? And that's how you get, like, the way I see Twitter or social media, it's top of funnel. So a lot of the stuff I write is more basic. I mean, I definitely do the personal and authority stuff, but you need to get people into your ecosystem, and once you have them in your ecosystem, that's when you can start raising their level of awareness. It's like marketing, right? You start talking about these concepts and introducing them to different stuff, because if you just start talking about, oh, like, you need to do XYZ, and they're getting overwhelmed, like, what is this? I don't even know. So you slowly bring them in. Maybe you bring them into your newsletter where you can talk to them a bit more intimately, or you get them, funnel them to your podcast where you can go more in depth with stuff. But it all starts with that, like, top of funnel where you just bring them in first, and it's like, okay, like, kind of introduce them to this, and then you can really start to impact them, in my opinion.
What is the greatest stretch you've had to make in terms of pretending to be someone else? Look, you look at you and you say, this guy goes to the gym, so a health fitness person, there's not much of a stretch there. It's like what you do and are interested in anyways. Tell me an account that you've written for that is so not you, so I can see where you take this, and then give me some examples of telling their story, or how you were able to take a piece of content that is broad but make it in their tone of voice.
Relate to a lot of my clients in, like, different aspects. One notable one is like a award-winning male porn star. But it's not like...
Wait, hold on. This is the big stretch, right?
I mean, I got my OnlyFans. I subscribe $10 a month. I mean, like, there's definitely like stuff like that, like, just kind of outlandish. I relate to his personality in some ways. And I'm not posting like any not safe for work content. It's like self-improvement stuff. But I kind of definitely got to lean into, like, certain aspects of my personality and beliefs, and kind of exaggerate it in a lot of ways for some people. I've written for e-com people in the past, and I stopped working with them because it's just so bland. And like, I don't know, like if you can tell, like I'm more like, I don't know, I like being more out there and like saying more interesting things other than just bland e-com stuff. Like there's not too many clients. I'd say it's been a crazy stretch. Oh, I've had some holistic people where they're in the, like more holistic health, and I'm writing this stuff and I'm like, oh, I don't believe this at all. Like, but whatever, if this is what they believe, like that's what they believe, and I'll write it. Yeah, like one guy's son's his balls. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. Raise your testosterone or whatever. So I don't know about that.
Well, you had said that the reason why you knew college wasn't right for you when your instructor said, hey, mime a weather system, it's pretty out there weird stuff. So you do wind up potentially helping people who are like, I don't believe any of this, but I can pretend.
Yeah, I can.
So
Yeah.
do you take that as a badge of honor that I could pretend to be something I'm totally not? Or do you feel like that's a poor fit for you and you shouldn't be doing that?
For so many years, I pretended to be someone that I wasn't. So I felt like an imposter, and I pretended to be confident in a lot of ways and just like that. So in a sense, it's kind of natural. It sounds bad to say, but I also recognize like I don't know everything. I could be completely wrong with my perspectives on the world, and who am I to say, oh, your perspective is wrong? So it's my job as a writer to best convey that person's perspective, regardless of what I believe. And I want nothing but the best for my clients. Like I want to over deliver, and I believe they have the right to tell people what they believe. And again, like my biggest value is freedom. I'm so open to everyone's different perspectives. I may not agree with them, but I think everyone has their right to try to impact or change the world in how they see fit, as long as it's not hurting anybody or bringing anyone down. I do like my ability to kind of morph myself into these different positions, but I'm good at compartmentalizing. It's like, okay, I believe this, but I got to write in this character. It's kind of like actors, you know?
Yeah. I wrote that word acting down because you said pretend, and some people, I don't like that term, but that's what actors do. They embody the person and they leave themselves aside. They become very emotionally vulnerable, and then they react to what's going on, right? And that's what you are able to do. I want to ask you this question, and I think it was Blair Enns who said this. He said that all strategy is autobiographical. We recommend people do things that have worked for us. So this worked for us, and therefore it might work for you. Who knows? So what is the correlation between physical fitness and health and success?
I was running away from the person that I currently was. I was fat. I was very socially anxious. I didn't like myself. And so that motivated me to go to the gym. And I had that deep pain. And so I went hard at the gym. I worked out till I threw up. I was going to YMCA boot camps, and it was crazy. I just went balls to the wall and all the time. And I didn't see results for like the first few months, really. I just knew, like, I'm just going to do this. I don't know where this is going to lead. I just need to take some kind of action and just go hard at this. So I was probably like 5-6 months in. And I remember looking in the mirror one day, and it was like around my stomach, I saw some definition. And I was so blown away. I legit just, I looked in the mirror for a good 20 minutes, like just flexing, like, yeah, like no big deal, like all that stuff. I was so proud of myself. That's when it really formed a new belief in me. It's like, okay, if I put in all these hours of work just to get 1% better, like that's huge. Like that just meant the world to me. It formed a new belief for me. It's like, if you put in all these hours of work just to get 1% better, I mean, that's huge. And it showed me, okay, you got to have a long-term vision and play the long game if you really want to be successful, because so many people, they just quit after a week or two. That's why they don't see results, because they're just not consistent. They just go really intense and then just stop. But if you can have that longer-term vision and really just put in the work, and sure, maybe it's a 1% difference, but it's a difference, and you're moving towards the person you want to become. And that's applicable to all areas of life. That's 100%, like that shaped my whole life, was just having that moment where it's like, oh my God, like, okay, if I put in all these hours and to get this result, like, let's keep going with this. And then it just compounds over time. It's the same with Twitter. The first 3 months, I only grew to 750 followers. And that's when I just took a step back. It's like, oh, okay, like, this isn't that good, but I'm going to keep trying and figuring this out. And then that's when I just kind of took a step back, changed my account to a writing account. And then within 40 days, I was at 1,000 followers. So if I just gave up, like, oh, I'm just not meant for Twitter, like I wouldn't be here today. Like Twitter is for my whole like business and most of my life right now. So it's just having that ability to, I mean, just being consistent and being consistent at the right thing too. A lot of people, Maybe they're consistent, but they don't use the feedback they're getting from their environment to change things, and then they're just hitting their head at a wall.
If people don't follow you on Instagram, then they'll know exactly what you're talking about, how Twitter is the foundation of your social existence and your business.
Yeah.
Because you essentially just take your tweets, screen capture them, and string them together to make a carousel on Instagram. And I believe you have more followers on Instagram than you do on Twitter, right?
Yeah. That was nuts.
So you're getting way more love on Instagram than you are on Twitter.
Yeah. It blew my mind how fast you can grow on Instagram. It was crazy. I mean, less so now, but it was nuts.
Basically, what you put in your body and how you spend your energy are one of the few things you can actually control in this world. I think all the other control is an illusion. And you're saying if you put in the work, if it's just 1% improvement, I don't know if you've seen this math formula before, but they take 1 and they improve it by 1%. So it's 1.01. And they take it to the 365th power and it equals some big number. And like, isn't that amazing? And like the opposite is true too. If you do 1% less, then it's 0.9, whatever, 99 or whatever it is. And to the 365th power, and you see that it's diminished, and it's the power of just showing up every day, just looking for that small improvement. And before you know it, you've got abs, then you've got muscles, then you have a whole new life and a new outlook, right? You were able to rebuild yourself. And I think there is some correlation here between really successful high net worth people and how they take care of this mortal coil, their frame. You know, Jeff Bezos was like a really nerdy dude, became the world's richest man for a period of time. Then there's pictures of him emerging. It's like the guy's yoked walking around. It's ridiculous. And Dana White recently was just spreading the rounds on the internet about when he took off his shirt. And he's like, oh my God, I thought he was a fat dude, but he's really muscular under all that. So there's this thing about performance, discipline, motivation, playing the long game. So if anybody's looking to reinvent their life, start with the things you can control. It'll teach you a lot about yourself and probably like what you're capable of. I got 2 more questions. They're a little bit more tactical because we heard your story. We're inspired, and we even have business models now to think about that we weren't aware of before. So you're really good at writing copy. What are 5 things that people need to do to avoid writing really crappy copy?
Yeah, so first off, you need to simplify. So a lot of people, they want to try to sound smart. I think college and school does a bad job at encouraging people. But I mean, do you want to replace like any big words like nonplussed? I mean, that means confused. Like you just say confused, not nonplussed. Say use, not utilize. Like use simple language, and ideally use language that 5th grade or below could understand. And the way you can use that is use a software like my favorite is Pro Writing Aid. You can analyze the grade level of your writing. There's also the Hemingway app. So I'd use those to get that feedback and just write at a simple and clear manner, because if people are confused, they're not going to understand your message. Their attention spans will go on to the next TikTok or tweet or whatever. So that's very, very crucial. Storytelling, using stories in your writing, because people are attracted. They're emotionally moved by stories, and it resonates with people a lot more when you can present information with stories. Because if people wanted information, they'd Google stuff. Cut whatever doesn't move your message forward. Using the words you and your, like talking to your reader, not at your reader. So, hey people, like, do you want to lose weight? Or like instead you could say, hey, are you looking to lose weight? See how it's way more engaging when you're talking to someone, not at them like it's a lecture.
How powerful is the active voice versus the passive voice?
I find it more engaging to use active, but there's also time, like people like to shit on passive voice, but there is a place with passive voice. So if someone's a victim of something, if you use passive voice, then it's more impactful because it just feels like it's happening to somebody opposed to them doing something. So that's I think the one exception. So like the car hit the woman opposed to the woman was hit by the car. Like one's more impactful and then the other's like, I don't know. Like that's a horrible example.
That's pretty
like,
nuanced. I'm like, holy crap, I cannot figure this one out, Dakota. Because I saw that on your list. I'm like, I am unfamiliar with this active and passive voice.
Yeah.
Can you find an example where that's like really clear?
Yeah, like the boy ate the apple. So that's active voice because the boy is performing the action instead of the apple was eaten by the boy. So there's if you go passive, the apple was eaten by the boy, then I mean it's longer. It's harder to visualize too, because when you look at somebody, you typically see the person taking the action, not the action being performed by the person. It's a hard rule to kind of conceptualize and
Yeah.
explain, but like that's yeah, it's like yeah, like that.
Okay, maybe we don't use that one as an example
Yeah,
because that was a
yeah.
hard one. Give me another fifth one. Give me like the no-brainer. Here we go.
Use numbers in your writing. That's a huge one. So people are attracted to numbers, specifically odd numbers like 3, 7. I forget the reasoning behind that, but use numbers because say if I'm on Twitter and I'm scrolling and I see all this text, but if I see a number, that's going to stand out. Same with like a dollar sign or a percentage sign. It's like a pattern disrupt. So if you can do that, that's huge. I use numbers in pretty much all my headlines and get really good at capturing attention, get really good at headlines. 'Cause that's like probably number one is get really good at headlines because if you can't capture attention, you're just done. If they don't read your first line, they won't read your last line or your second line. So you really need to study headlines. And I would study the great copywriters and go that route. But yeah.
So that's kind of like the example is 23 sentences that'll improve your writing more than 12 years of English class. You used it twice. It was such a good rule. You double dipped on that one.
Okay, let me break this down. Okay, so I have this formula for writing viral headlines. You want to make the benefit as big as possible. 47 sentences that'll make you more money than a 4-year marketing degree. So big benefit is make you more money than a 4-year degree. You want the effort to seem really low. So 47 sentences, that effort's so low, like, oh, I just got to read 47 sentences to get this big benefit. So it has to be relevant to your audience. So if I start talking about basketball to an audience full of writers, they're not going to care. So you have to make sure your content matches your audience. Oh, and then reach. You just need to distribute the content. So you need to get eyes on it because if you have the best content in the world and no one reads it, it doesn't matter. So you need those like 4 elements. So like make the benefit huge, make the perceived effort really low, make sure it's relevant to your audience, and then make sure you have good reach / distribution.
So without seeing the distribution, your example of 47 sentences that'll make you more money than a 4-year marketing degree puts all those principles in play. The big benefit, make a lot of money. The low effort is 47 sentences relative to 4-year market degree. And relevant is people who are looking to study marketing are just looking to make money. So it's tied together, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm targeting a benefit, right? Like I'm not going to, like making money is the benefit opposed to like, here are 47 marketing tips. Like it's more appealing to say, oh, it'll make you more money. So you always want to look at, okay, what's the impact of this? What's the impact of whatever you're talking about and think about the end result? Because at the end of the day, that's what people want is the benefit. They don't want to get fit. They want to increase their status or they want to become more confident or they want to get more energy, stuff like that.
Last question for you, Dakota. Thanks for doing this with me.
Yes.
Here we go. This one should be an easy for you. What are 3 books someone can read to learn to write better, to be a better storyteller, and then why? Your 3 favorite books if I want to improve writing. I knew it was like throwing you a softball.
I just did a reel on this. So my number 1 favorite book is Writing Tools by Roy Peter Clark. That one... There's a lot of writing books, but that one I think just nails it on the head with how it explains different rules. It teaches you how to cut the fluff, teaches you different rules like how to structure your writing in an engaging way. It's a masterclass. I would highly suggest just writing in general. That book is amazing. For storytelling, Storyworthy by Matthew Dix. I'm re-listening to it right now. That is absolutely amazing for showing you the theory of storytelling, but also giving you the tools of how to apply it and how to think about it. So that's amazing. And then if you want to go more copywriting and learn the psychology behind writing, Cashvertising is absolutely great. A great beginner book. And I mean, covers like pretty much most of what you need to know and gives you a great overview of like why people do things. And so much actionable stuff in there that I incorporate in all my tweets and writing. So I think if you read those 3 books, you'll learn a lot. You'll be like 80% there.
I'm curious, when we began this episode, you introduced yourself a certain way. But in the real world, how do you introduce yourself if somebody's like, oh, I'm Bob, I do this? And how do you introduce yourself?
I just say, hey, I'm Dakota. Nice to meet you. Like, I try not to.
But what do you do, Dakota?
I literally tell them I pretend to be people on the internet.
Okay, so you just say the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I try to be the same on, like, everywhere. Like, my friends know me. Like, I moved in with my buddy Dan for 5 months, and like they know I'm the same person online. And I mean, maybe different a little bit, like dialed back in some aspects online, or maybe not. I don't know, but I'm pretty open. And my mom had a huge impact on me in that aspect, so it rubbed off.
Well, it's really fun having this conversation with you. For people who are intrigued by this young person who's got all these ideas about writing, who's been able to do a whole bunch of different things in a relatively short amount of time, how do people find out more about you? Since you're not taking in more clients, you mentioned you're trying to get out of the agency work, so there must be something else you're thinking about.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a done with you offer. So instead of doing the work for people, I'm gonna just do it with them, give them all the everything I know, and just grow them like crazy that way. But yeah, I'm still working on that. But I will at least.
Is that like a course or something?
No, I want to really get people results. So I'm going to actually like it's going to be a group where like I'm going to
I
actually
see.
hop on calls with people, maybe a course down the line. But
Okay.
right now I just want to really like find out people's pain points and struggles and all that and really help them and get great results for them. And I will still have the agency. It's just like I won't be as involved, but we'll still have that
Right.
going. But yeah, I'm on Twitter at wrongs to write, like you're writing, WRITE. And then I'm on Instagram. I'm changing my username because people are getting scammed. So I'm buying a username. It will be at DKOTA. So that will be my Instagram when this gets aired, I imagine. Absolutely. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me. This is actually really surreal for me to like be on this podcast. I really appreciate all the content you put out, and I still consume your content. So really appreciate
Thanks so much.
how you've been paving the way for a lot of creators.
Thank you. Do you do public speaking, by the way?
No, I do not.
Do you desire to?
Maybe someday. I know that's like down the line, but right now I know I need like I actually started my own podcast to get better at speaking because that's something I want.
Okay.
Like I'm leaning into that discomfort again. I want to get
Right.
better at it. But maybe someday down the line.
Because I heard that you are 5'8".
Yes.
How much do you currently weigh?
Yes, I'm 190.
190.
bulky.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you are bulky, dude. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
So
Dude, I
I'm
got to
5'8".
220 at one point. At 220.
I heard about that
That was crazy. Yeah.
in your big day, right?
Yeah. Like that was when I was 19. I just got really kind of not depressed.
Super
but
jacked.
no, I got lazy. I got fat and jacked.
Oh, okay, the other way.
Not a good
Okay,
combo.
just for context, I'm about 5'8" myself. I think I'm a $135 right now.
Damn.
So there's a 60-pound child between us. So I asked you about public speaking because maybe one of these days we'll be sharing the stage and I'll walk up to you. I'm like, there's the 60 pounds of muscle in another person.
I'll give some to you. I
Yeah.
got some excess. I am Dakota Robertson, and you are listening to The Future.